All right, Shalom. There's your brother Nahal from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rokah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word, and all truth and its sincerity. All right, and I want to go into a lesson through the Spirit, and I've entitled this lesson, The Prodigal Son, a Family Affair. All right, and because when you understand the proper context of the scriptures, the Gentiles that are receiving salvation in the New Testament are Israelites. All right, and this is highlighted in this parable of the prodigal son. So I want to read this first, Lord willing, and then grab some precepts through the Spirit. Lord willing, this be edifying. So it says the prodigal son. Luke 15:11 reads, "And he said, a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they begin to make merry." All right, now I want to stop here for a second through the Spirit, because when you look at what the Lord promised our forefathers, beginning with Abraham, passed down to Isaac and to Jacob, that promise didn't come with conditions. So even though we went off as a nation of people, as a family, that promise is still our inheritance. All right, so what we have in the New Testament is a controversy, if you will. When Yahushua was on the earth, at 30 years old, preaching the gospel, he was dealing with an environment of Israelites who had justified themselves by the laws that they could keep. And they looked down upon Israelites who were not keeping those customs. So they looked at those Israelites who were not keeping those customs as men who will not receive salvation, who could not receive mercy. This is why Paul has a ministry of reconciliation, because it was Israelites being reconciled back to their family. That mercy was always a part of the legacy. But when Yahushua was walking the earth, he was dealing with Israelites who had justified themselves by the laws that they could keep, and they forgot, if you will, they put by the mercy of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. All right, so let's continue, because we're going to see that highlighted in this parable. All right, verse 24 reads again, "For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they begin to make merry, and they begin to be merry. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing, and he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry, and would not go in. Therefore came his father out and entreated him. And he answered, saying, and he answered, said, and he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad. For this thy brother was dead, and is alive again, and was lost, and is found. All right, because it is a family affair. All right. And I want to go to the words of Yahweh Shai, because even now in this day and age, we're in essence a prodigal son. We've spent our life, a great portion of our life in riotous living. And now the Lord has granted us mercy, Lord willing, we be a part of that number to come home. Now just imagine how difficult that would have been in the land of Judea during the time of Yahweh Shai, with Israelites who basically looked down upon you because of the lifestyle that you were living. And as you attempted to come back to your heritage, you were vexed by these men. This is why Paul talked about circumcision and all of these different subjects, because this was the environment that was happening, that was going on. This was the environment that they were living in. And as you think about our journey, Lord willing, we be a part of that number of returning to our heritage. Just imagine how heavy it would have been during that time with guys like Caiaphas, with guys like the wicked scribes and Pharisees, Saul before he became Paul. So really it's highlighting a family affair. All right. And it's very humbling through the spirit, but it also gives context to the New Testament. All right. And the time that Yahweh Shai was living in, which is something that Christianity has intentionally ignored, in order to insert themselves into a legacy that didn't belong to them. Now, this is 1 Peter 4:1. For as much then as Hamashiach has suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. For he that has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of Yahweh Shai. For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles, when we walked in lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, revelings, banquetings, and abominable idolatries, wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them to the same excess of riot, speaking evil of you, who shall give account to him that is ready to judge the quick and the dead. All right, but I brought that out to highlight through the spirit that, in essence, all of us who are waking up now, once lived our life riotously in this world in some way, form, or fashion, which is, we're likened unto the prodigal son. And this is what Yahweh Shai was dealing with. And it's beautiful because, Yahweh Shai said this as well. Let's get this. This is John chapter 3 and verse 14. It reads, And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For the Most High so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For the Most High sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Now, that's not talking about anybody, just anybody in the earth. All right, this is Isaiah 45:17. But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. He shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. All right, and it's beautiful because The ones who knew letters, the wicked scribes and the Pharisees, they knew these precepts. They knew about Isaiah 45 and 17. They knew about the many prophecies of the Lord gathering his people again. But when it was happening in their face, they couldn't discern it. And this is why Yahweh Shah said they couldn't discern the signs of the times. That mercy was already put into the contract and the promise. We didn't receive the promise by the law. All right, but you had men during that time who were justifying themselves by the law, just like the prodigal son. Let's get the words of the prodigal son one more time. Or not the prodigal son, but the older son, the elder son. This is Luke 15 and 29. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. And you can liken that unto those of the circumcision, who saw these Israelites that were coming back to their heritage, and they had this zeal of not wanting them to come back, or feeling like they don't deserve to come back almost. And that was the controversy between the circumcision and the uncircumcision. All right. Matter of fact, let me get this as well. This is Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 11. And it reads, Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands, that at that time ye were without Hamashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without the Most High in the world. All right, but now in Yahweh Shah Hamashiach, ye who sometimes were afar off are made nigh by the blood of Hamashiach. All right, and his blood did not cover the other nations concerning the covenant. Now, eventually, the entire planet, the laws are going to be enforced on the entire planet. But concerning this mercy of salvation, this is dealing with a family. This is a family affair. The other nations will come to Jacob to learn the law, statutes, and commandments when the kingdom is established. But when you're dealing with the New Testament and the Gentiles that shall receive salvation, that's a family affair. That has nothing to do with any other nation outside of the nation of Israel. All right, this is Matthew 26 and 28. For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. All right, let's get that word remission. All right, aphesis or aphesis. All right, and it reads, release from bondage or imprisonment, forgiveness or pardon. Now you have to ask yourself, how can the heathens, the natural heathens, be forgiven for something they knew nothing about? They weren't a part of the law. They weren't given the law. They weren't in bondage. When you really look at the situation of Israel during the time of Yahweh Shah, they weren't in bondage. We were in bondage as a nation of people. All right. Strong's definition reads freedom, pardon. All right. This is important, right? Because when you get this word, just a basic of pardon, the action of forgiving or being forgiven for an error or offense. And that was always prophesied that the Lord would do that for the nation of Israel. Not for just any random, no, it was for the nation of Israel. All right, let's get this. This is Micah chapter 7 and verse 15. According to the days of thy coming out of the land of Egypt, will I show unto him marvelous things. The nations shall see and be confounded at all their might. They shall lay their hand upon their mouth. Their ears shall be deaf. They shall lick the dust like a serpent. They shall move out of their holes like worms of the earth. They shall be afraid of the Lord our God, and shall fear because of thee. Who is a God like unto thee, that pardoneth iniquity, and passeth by transgression of the remnant of his heritage? He retaineth not his anger forever, because he delighteth in mercy. He will turn again. He will have compassion upon us. He will subdue our iniquities, and thou wilt cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. Thou wilt perform the truth to Jacob and the mercy to Abraham, which thou hast sworn unto our fathers from the days of old. So Yahweh Shai, in essence, was the bridge to that mercy, which brings a heavier tone to John, the 3rd chapter.